Hello, everybody. Here from the heart of Miami, Florida, in Kendall, for the AG News Hour. I'm your host, Roberto Alvarez Galloso. We normally would be doing programs dedicated to sports and culture, but we're going to do a special program. Before going to the special program, we're going to start with a Bible reading, Genesis 1:1, which says, "On the first day, God created heaven and earth." And to continue on this, I always love to say that diversity without diversity of opinion is dictatorship. In addition, in Miami, plus in Lakeland, Florida, I also saw a billboard that once stated, "Heaven or hell, you decide." And last but not least, as I was beginning this program, I was hearing a song written and recorded by Midnight Kahuna. He is a rock and country artist born here in Miami, Florida, to Cuban parents, and he has understood what I'm saying and I'm going to be going through right now. He wrote a song called "God Bless This Land, America," in which he talked about America as it is. Right now, America is undergoing a cultural and political change which is leading to these two paths that I have already talked about, heaven or hell. And it's like, imagine going straight forward on a road, and then you're on a road, and then you have to take two sides. You can't, once you take that side, you cannot go back. And this is scary. It's an interesting piece of history, but it is very scary because the United States, as we know it, could take one road and save itself. But it can take the other road and it will not save itself, because there are people who want to destroy America, and many of them are within our government, are within our institutions, churches, universities, places of work, and they are all over the 50 states. There is no way that you can escape them. And right now, to try to understand what I have here, we have the famous politologist, Obie Usategui, who has been an extensive writer, not only about Cuba, but he has also extensively written about the United States. And for me, Obie, it is a pleasure to have you here in the AG News Show, which is a very special program, an emergency program.
The pleasure is mine, Roberto. I am very appreciative of the fact that you have invited me to join you in this program, and the fact that you have expressed your concern and your willingness to help us in this crusade that I am undertaking to combat communism in the United States, which I think it's definitely eroding into our culture, our society, our government. Matter of fact, I think that communism, not socialism, communism, has actually penetrated all facets of our society. And ironically, there's a lot of mainstream Americans which thought this could never happen. They were in denial. To this day, there are still millions of Americans who feel that communism would never be able to penetrate the United States, which is a complete fallacy. As far as I'm concerned, communism has been growing in the United States for the past 30 years, if not more. And unfortunately, we have reached a stage in this process where the communists have literally come out of the closet. They are openly promoting communism in the United States. They use in the lexicon, in the political lexicon, everybody refers to the system as or to the crusade or to the revolution as socialism, whereas this is camouflage, a way to camouflage and a way to distract people from the real evils that are now being felt by everybody, every single person in the United States. This is, Roberto, the reason that I have decided to combat communism, because I feel there is a tremendous need for everybody to become aware, to express their opinions, to be out loud about what's going on. We must bring it out in the open. As recently as this morning, I heard on a program, on a very renowned program by Fox News, I heard that there was an inquest done. There was there was a result. The results of an interview that was carried on the nation to the youth of the nation, and the results were scary, to say the least. The results were that 36.5% of the millennials in the country today endorse communism, not socialism. 36.5% of the millennials actually endorse communism, and that, my friend, is a very, very scary thought.
Yeah, I've heard about the 36%, but I've also heard from other news sources like Breitbart, even some, and even the monument to the victims of communism in Washington, D.C., that the numbers are a lot higher. Which leads to this question: how did we in America arrive at this situation where there was once a time when communism was actually a dirty word, and now we have communism actually penetrating every facet of American society? How do we arrive at this situation?
Okay, I think, to be honest with you, that it's been a long time coming, and I'll explain why. As you well know, there were two periods in the United States, in the history of the United States, which were named or labeled Red Scares. The Red Scares took place right after World War I, and also after, in the decade of the 40s and the 50s. During that time, everybody in the United States, most Americans, were very, very concerned of the word communism. As a matter of fact, communism was a household word in the late 40s and the 50s. And actually, there was a movement here by Senator McCarthy, which took it upon himself to fight communism, and he was held by the FBI director at that time, Edgar Hoover, and communism became really a dirty word for, as far as the government was concerned, and there were all kinds of committees and what have you instituted to prevent people in government from penetrating in the government that had any kind of communist background or incline. Unfortunately, the McCarthy movement ended up in being a dirty word because, unfortunately, again, McCarthy used his persecution of communism to the point where it became politicized, to where they were actually putting people in jail, and they went after people that really had no political communist inclines, and they just were used as political adversaries, and they used the word communism to accuse these political adversaries, and unfortunately it got to the point where the McCarthy movement was actually destroyed, and from there on, I think from the 1950s on, the word communism began to disappear from the American lexicon, and I think that with the ending at the end of the Cold War, with Russia, with the fall Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War, the word communism and anti-communism became obsolete, and it was slowly replaced with words such as socialism or hard liberal or radical liberal or progressive and what have you. So before we knew it, communism was penetrating the United States tiers of government, and everybody was in denial, sort of. They believed that they believed that it could not happen in the United States, and slowly but surely, the Communist Party began to form and to activate using activists to organize themselves. And you also had people like guys like Saul Alinsky, who was one of the directors of communism in the United States by creating his community organizers, who, by the way, of which Barack Obama was one of his most important disciples, and so was Hillary Clinton. So anyways, in direct answer to your question, communism has been working its way for a takeover in what I call a silent revolution. Unlike what Karl Marx anticipated, that there was going to be a violent revolution, I think the times have changed, and instead of the violent revolution that was anticipated by Karl Marx in 1848, what we have now is a very peaceful but well-organized crusade to aim at converting the United States from a capitalist or a constitutional republic into a full-blown communist state.
Okay. Could it also have been that maybe America might have arrived at the situation with some of the Supreme Court decisions governing, for example, prayers in public schools and abortion, and of course the redefinition, quote unquote, of family? Because I read this in the book of Marcuse, Frankfurt Theory, that him and Gramsci wrote about the restructuring of the family via the courts ruling against the true values, not traditional values, but true values, going against the sanctity of life, and also redefining family. Those are their words, not mine.
I totally agree, Roberto, and I think at the core of everything that's going on of this transformation, at the core of it is the family unit, the values of Americans, usually upheld by most Americans, the traditional values on which this country was built, have been eroded, slowly eroded. The issue that you mentioned, for example, the issue of abortions and the sanctity of life, and issues that have been very dear to every American throughout history, have been completely destroyed, have been eroded, throughout time. The other thing is, for example, they're wanting to get away with destroying God and everything that deals with God. This has been slowly. They have been wanting to take away God from everything, from our Christmas, from all our traditions, and that's very symptomatic of the times. As you well know, communism and Karl Marx thought that God was not needed by the humanity and obviously, like you said, the government, our government has enacted laws, has continued to enact laws that all of these new laws are aimed at destroying the values. They use the Constitution. They have the Constitution now upside down, to where the values have been the historical values of the society have been totally converted into a sort of an anarchist society, and you see it everywhere.
Okay, we said that it is the millennials, 36% or even higher, are the ones that are embracing communism. And it, much more for me, it pains me because I've seen even those whose family have left Cuba. Gloria Alvarez, a famous politologist from Guatemala, libertarian, said that many people have left Latin America, and then either they or their sons and daughters or grandkids born in America repeat the same mistakes that they have made when they left Guatemala, Nicaragua, Cuba. I remember one case of a physician. She was born in, if I'm not mistaken, she was born in Missouri to Cuban parents. Her parents left Cuba. She was aware of the dangers of communism. Unfortunately, they did not teach these dangers to her daughter, and her daughter ended up voting for Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary. And this thing has why is it that the millennials are actually embracing communism? What is it that is actually, why are they embracing it?
Okay, I think you've hit it right on the nail now, and let me answer that question, because I think I have a very clear answer. The reason that millennials are embracing communism, and a lot of the youth are embracing communism, including descendants of people that are in exile of communist regimes such as the Cuban people and others in Latin America. The reason the youth is embracing communism is very simple. I think it's a total lack of education. In other words, I think that the greatest battle that we have ahead of us is to re-educate the millennials and re-educate all the youth, as they have been what I call disinformed. Okay, throughout the years, and you can see it in the presidential campaign, in the presidential candidates, their platforms. They all pretend to give entitlements and subsidies and free this and free that and free the other. And the youth, the millennials, embrace this as a romantic crusade. You know, they think they're doing something good. They think that they're going to get that free education is great, and free welfare and free Medicare and free everything. It's great for the people. The only thing that they don't know is, or they don't realize, is that communism and socialism, you know, while pretending to give everything for free, you know, this is just a romantic utopia, which is not realistic, not possible to really implement. And what ends up happening is, on the contrary, the bureaucratic dictatorships of rulers, of communist rulers, end up doing precisely the contrary of what they're promising the youth. In other words, they end up self-empowering themselves, self-enriching themselves at the expense precisely of the working people and the youth and all those that embrace communism in a very romantic way, while not realizing that this is a system, a political system, that has a legacy of debt that extends that we can combat what's going on with communism in the U.S. And the millennials and others that are not the millennials would be to re-educate the youth. I mean, there has to be a movement, a crusade, with the same activism as our enemy, the communists, do. We have to get ourselves organized and educate our youth and educate the young people in this country, the ones that are going to eventually be the politicians of tomorrow, and let them know what communism is all about, and let them know that Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and all this communists live in a world of dreams and utopia, and what nobody talks about is the fact that unless you agree with the system, with the political system, or with communism, the rulers and the state dictators, you're disposed of, you're eliminated, you're killed, or you're imprisoned. And I'm afraid, unfortunately, that most of this youth, most of these millennials, do not know, do not realize what is communism. They don't know what communism is all about. They haven't read. The name Karl Marx may be even foreign to a lot of this youth, and that's, Roberto, the reason I believe that millennials are embracing communism. They have been, in summary, they have been disinformed, okay, and that's typical of communism. They, brainwash all this youth into believing that they're doing something good.
Yeah, the schools have helped, have done this, so has Hollywood. And of course, there is nothing free, because when you have something free, quote unquote, you have to end up paying a price. And that would probably be like, instead of going out and enjoying life in a weekend, you would have to go and cut tomatoes or cut sugarcane or whatever.
Exactly.
I could. The thing is, how do we go about re-educating the millennials, and how do we go about recovering lost territory, even though some people say it might be too late, or others are just simply in denial, saying that this is not happening?
Okay, well, first of all, I happen to be one of them that agrees with that statement you just made, which is it could be a little bit late for the re-education that I'm talking about, unfortunately, because that would in order to re-educate the youth in America, you would have to organize first a campaign, a crusade, a revolution, however you want to call it, of how you're going to go about re-educating. I think it all boils down to starts at the schooling, at the level of schools, public schools, where as far as I'm concerned, communism should be a required course, should be a required reading, and should be implemented at the very early levels of school. I'm not maybe at the junior high schools or high schools. I think that teachers would have to be educated by themselves to be able to teach communism to the youth in the country. It's a massive undertaking, but I think that unless that is done at some time, eventually we will definitely lose the battle and lose the country. There's an alternative. That is what I call the peaceful alternative or solution, the peaceful solution, which is a non-violent one. Then there is another alternative, which may be the only one that it's available to us right now, which is the violent alternative, which would entice a civil war. Mm-hmm. Okay, it would mean a civil war because one word, like you said at the beginning of this interview, there's only two alternatives, viable alternatives to this whole situation. One is you either go for the good or you go for the bad. And so in the end, people have to make up their minds what they want to do. But I feel that if it came to the point where we needed to take up the arms and fight for the freedom of this country, that's what's at stake here. What's at stake here is our constitutional republic, our democracy, our rule of law. That's what's at stake here. So if that means that we have to take up arms and fight, so be it, as far as I'm concerned, because the other alternative, like you said, it's just willing to give away our country to communism. And as far as I'm concerned, that would probably be the beginning of the end.
Or the end of the end as it is.
You got it. I totally agree with you.
We're already beyond the beginning of the end. It would be It would be the end of the end, and we would be having the Dark Ages.
Yes, sir. Totally agree. I totally agree with that statement. I'm very good.
Because Ocasio-Cortez reminds me of more like Ocasio-Cortez. Her form of communism reminds me of the Khmer Rouge of Pol Pot.
Yes, sir. It does.
The Khmer Rouge, my understanding, from what I've been told in China, but what I also managed to get as a second opinion here in America. The Khmer Rouge pushed Cambodia into the caveman era.
Correct.
And and Ocasio-Cortez wants to do the same thing. To continue, what do you make of this? Not of this alliance, not only of the communists and the other groups, the pro-abortion, and the ones who want to reorganize the family. What do you see in the alliance between the Muslims and communism, when in Afghanistan they were actually fighting against each other?
Socialism and communism are interchangeable.
Right.
Okay. That's as far as I'm concerned.
To the point where the Muslims are now uniting with communism.
Correct. I think let's put it this way. As far as I'm concerned, communism represents everything in my mind, everything that's evil in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The way I see it is most older people that hate the United States and hate capitalism and hate democracy and hate everything that the United States stands for are ready, willing, and able to embrace anything that is evil in order to destroy, as a means of destroying the United States of America. That's simple. Okay, you may take that principle and you may dissect it into smaller, but that's where it all stems from. All the evil in the world right now, the United States has represented for us forever and ever, for as long as we've been here. The United States has represented the good of mankind, and but vis-a-vis, the communism has represented everything that's evil throughout history. I mean, I don't care what country, I don't care what time in history. Communism, since its beginning, has proven to be a failed system. Okay, both economically and politically. A failed system, a dictatorship, and again, with a death toll that over 100 million people, and it represents everything that's bad, Roberto. That's as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Before leaving, I'm trying to see if there's any other more questions that I could think, but in addition to the education, or in addition to the possible fact that we might have to defend ourselves in case of a civil war, is there any other venues, any other solutions?
Okay, from my way of thinking, and this may be a little bit spiritual.
I'm the same thing. I'm the same way also.
Okay, so the way I look at this is, like you said, from a human point of view, there are only two alternatives. One violent, one non-violent. But there is still a third alternative, which is to place ourselves in the hands of God and pray that He will find a way to sort all the thing out. I personally think he's already started doing something for us, and I think that the presidential elections of Donald Trump in 2016 was the beginning. I think the hand of God was intervening, because, as you well remember, everybody thought that Hillary Clinton was a sure bet, and all of a sudden, the most unexpected elections ever in the history of the country. When you had actually a non-political person win the elections, as far as I'm concerned, was God had His hand in there, and I'm saying that we should all put ourselves in the hands of God and ask Him to help us go through this. And I'm sure that God knows. God knows that communism is it represents everything that is not religious or against God. So I think God is on our side, Roberto, and I think He will help us sort this whole thing out. If you remember, back in 2008, when on November the 4th, 2008, right before the elections, Barack Obama said that he outright publicly in a public speech said, "We're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America." And what that meant, as far as I was concerned, fundamentally transforming the United States of America, as far as I was concerned, meant only one thing: is we are going to do away with capitalism, and we're going to turn this country into a full-blown communist state. And they were well on their way. The 8 years of Barack Obama, was. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we know.
As far as I was concerned, the Obama administration was the preamble to everything that's going on, and unless there was some radical change, they were well on their way to taking over. And as you well know, on 2016, I think Trump was God sent, if you ask me. So in answer to your question, Roberto, I think that in addition to the two alternatives, the civil war or the re-education, I think we all should place ourselves in the hands of God and pray and hope that He will be on our side in getting rid of this illness that is affecting our nation.
More than just an illness. It's a cancer.
Yes, sir. Yes.
A very invasive cancer.
Yes, sir.
And my opinion, I don't know if you will agree with me or not, but I'm going to bring it up before we close.
Yes.
Communism in America would be much, much worse than anything that would have happened in Cuba or Nicaragua or in Venezuela. My opinion, I'm saying this as someone born here, is that the American communism that I have seen in my life is a mixture of North Korea's Kim Il-sung,
Yes, sir.
Cambodia's Pol Pot,
Yes, sir.
Mao Zedong's China.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Totally agree with your statement, Mr. Walker.
With
Totally.
also with an addition of Castro. With an addition of Castro and Chavez, but a heavy influence from Gramsci and Marcos to very, very, very heavy influence of Mao, Pol Pot, Ho Chi Minh, and Kim Il Sung.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And I could say this because I've read these people, and Ocasio-Cortez is actually speaking like Pol Pot.
Completely.
So I do want to thank you, Obie, for coming here. Don't hang up yet because I'm going to be saying goodbye to you later on. But I'm going to be saying goodbye in this program. I do want to thank all of my public, and also want to thank Obie Usategui's public for coming and listening to this special program, which will be placed on the air immediately after we finish recording. Immediately between now and 15 minutes, you could hear it. You could hear the whole program in its entirety on this webpage, alvarezgalloso.com. ALV, V as in Virginia, AREZGALLOSO.com. I'll be leaving this with some of the readers of Obie Usategui, and I'm also going to leave the webpage for him so that everyone could hear. It is very important that we all unite against this big cancer that has already invaded the soul of the United States. And